So I kind of had a rough week. As some of you know, there was a big dispute in our family. The kid's mom, 2 days before school started, filed a motion to send the two little kids to a completely different school in a totally different school district. And the judge, it was kind of an emergency thing, so the judge made a quick decision based on affidavits, and for some reason she ruled that it would be better for Georgia to go to a completely different school than her siblings. Somehow, a physical building that is close to her mother's house was of greater significance than going to a school where her brothers and sisters were. And it just completely boggled my mind. And it was a hard thing for the kids. The kids feel that they're continually separated from their younger siblings. I picked Georgia up from her first day of school, and she just burst into tears. She said, "Daddy, I wanted to be in school with my brothers and sisters." And it's one of those things that you just scratch your head and you say, you know, one, is there any common sense left in the court system? How could this be? But then, number two, it's like, well, Lord, how did you allow this? And, you know, the week before that, God came through in my life in the most unbelievable way in providing for my needs. And I just went from praising the Lord, I was on cloud nine, to like being dashed to pieces. And it's like, wait a second, what's going on? Well, all through this, the Lord knew that I was going to be preaching on this passage this week. So, as I've said many times before, when I'm up here talking, I'm preaching to myself and just letting you all listen in, okay? And that's what this morning is. You remember in the book of John, last week, Jesus had just fed 20,000 people with a boy's sardines and crackers. Pretty amazing, right? So here they were. The disciples are there with Jesus. Jesus does this incredible miracle, and all the people are like, hey, let's make Jesus king. And you can imagine the disciples were like, finally, yes, he's going to be the king, and he's going to deliver us from the Romans. We're not going to have to pay all those taxes. Finally, someone's going to sort out the steelhead problem so that the returns are like what they should be. And life is going to be great with Jesus in charge. So, you can imagine the disciples are there. Hey, this is awesome. Everybody's ready to make Jesus king. And Jesus does the unthinkable. He tells the disciples, listen, I want you to go meet me over there in Capernaum. I'm going to dismiss the crowds. And the disciples were probably like, wait a second. Jesus, this is all about you being the king of Israel, and here's your moment to shine, and you're just telling the crowds to go home? Because you want to go up to the mountain by yourself, and you're telling us to go somewhere else? And so here the disciples just went from this amazing thrill of seeing this miracle to Jesus just like letting the wind out of their sails. And then it gets worse, as you're going to see. So we find, therefore, when Jesus perceived that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he did what no politician would ever do. He kind of runs away. to go to the mountain to talk to his Father, to pray. Now, when evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into the boat, and went over the sea toward Capernaum. And it was already dark, and Jesus had not come to them. So here you see, when evening came. Now, in the book of John, there's this motif. Remember, we learned about Nick at night? Remember? Nicodemus comes to Jesus at night because he's afraid. So, in the book of John, nighttime is kind of a connotation of not good things. And then, nighttime without Jesus is going to be even worse. So, Jesus says, hey, I want you to go to Capernaum. I'll meet you over there. Well, they get down, and just to give you a little map here, here's kind of where we see. The Sea of Galilee is about 8 miles wide. Okay, well, and right here, let's put a different color in. Right here is where the feeding of the 5,000 took place. Okay, so you see that. So Jesus is there, and they're trying to go over here to Capernaum. So that's where they're supposed to go. Jesus says, go there. Well, the problem is, it's nighttime, and Jesus said, go over there, I'll meet you there, and he doesn't show up. It's like, Jesus, can't you, be on a regular time scale? So the disciples, what do? Well, they get in the boat, the Bible says, and they start heading over. Now, you have to understand a little bit about the boat. The boat is not like, a jet boat or a hovercraft, or it probably looks something like this. And actually, it would have had a sail, and they could also row it. It would hold about 15 people. Here's just another picture. And actually, what an amazing discovery several years ago is they actually found the remains of a boat on the Sea of Galilee, buried in the mud. Now, what happened was, there's a horrific drought. So the lake dropped feet and feet. And they found this boat right near Capernaum. And it's dated between 100 BC and 100 AD. So it's very likely, they call it the Jesus boat. This is the kind of boat the disciples were in. Now, the other thing about the Sea of Galilee is to understand the Sea of Galilee. If we go this direction here, we go to the Mediterranean Sea. And what would happen is storms would come off the Mediterranean, hit the mountains, and just come flying across the Sea of Galilee. And they would turn the Sea of Galilee into a horrific tempest. And the storms would happen like that. They still happen today. So, that's a little bit of backdrop. Now, the other thing you want to remember is the disciples, most of them were professional fishermen. So they were used to the ocean, or the sea, they were used to this, and it wasn't a big deal for them to go several miles by boat to where they were trying to head. Well, the next thing we find out is, then the sea arose, okay, and it's being not just white caps, huge waves. They're in a little boat. Because a great wind was blowing. Now we find out the source of the wind a little later on was Jesus. So, when they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles. Now, have any of you ever rowed a boat? Yeah, okay. It can be tiring. They had to row 3 or 4 miles. So they are basically in the middle of the lake. And just to give you an idea here, the direction they're going, here's the other crazy thing, is there's where they took off, and you have this west wind. This is where the storms come across. The wind is coming the very direction they need to go. Now I remember, I used to do a lot of canoeing before I had kids in the back country of Canada, and I would take men's groups there for a week, and it was just beautiful. We camp on this island, just completely all by yourself, and there was this really long lake. We had to go up the whole length of the lake, and oftentimes the problem was the wind came from that direction. And there'd be 4-foot whitecaps in a canoe laden down with all kinds of stuff. And we'd have to navigate that. And I mean, it can be a scary deal. Having to go in the direction of the wind with whitecaps. The other thing we find is, from the other Gospels, it's about 3:30 in the morning. The disciples leave that evening, and it should have just been a couple of hours. But this storm comes, and it's horrific. They're in the middle of the lake, unbelievable storm. They think they're going to die. They've been rowing all night long, and you've got to imagine they're saying to themselves, "Where is Jesus? My goodness! Like, Jesus, we just did this great thing several hours ago. We took little boys' crackers and sardines, fed 20,000 people. We've been doing ministry. We've been following you, Jesus. You told us to get in the boat and to go over here, and we're doing just exactly what you told us to do. And now, we're in the middle of the lake. We've been rowing all night long. It's 3:30 in the morning. We don't have any coffee. There's no Starbucks nearby. And Jesus, what on earth are you doing to us?" Right? Have any of you ever been there? You're following Jesus. You're trying to do what he's telling you to do. And you find yourself in the midst of a horrific situation. And you're just saying to yourself, "Where is Jesus?" The disciples just had this amazing thrill of a miracle. Not just a few hours before. And now they're in fear and in agony that they're going to drown. So, there they are. The text tells us, let me back up. We missed a section here. The sea rose up. They're rowing 3 or 4 miles in the middle of the night. They saw Jesus walking on the sea. Now, just think about this. Jesus is walking on the water. Now some people are like, well, why was Jesus walking on the water? Well, it may be, with all the crowds following, trying to make him the king, walking in the water was the only place he could get away from people. So there he is, out walking around on the water. I mean, that's an amazing thing, to walk on the water. It's a miracle. Jesus is trying to show us that, you know what? Old Testament, God could part the Red Sea. God could make an accent float on water. God could dry up the Jordan River and stop it. The God of the Old Testament has the authority over nature, over water. And now we see Jesus exhibiting the same power that Old Testament writers depicted the Father. Now he's walking on the water, coming near the boat, and they are terrified. They don't know who it is Jesus. Now, think about it. You guys got to think through this. There you are. You're afraid you're going to drown. And then you see the other Gospels tell us that they thought it was a ghost. Just put yourself in their shoes. You see somebody walking on the water. Pitch black. The disciples are probably thinking we're about to lose our mind. Right? Well, then we find Jesus says, "It is I." It's the Greek way of saying I am. It's the same name that when Moses asks God in the Old Testament, "Who shall I say you are?" And God replies with what? I am. Jesus says the same thing. I am. And then he tells him, do not be afraid. Now, throughout the Bible, did you know that in the Bible, I think it's about 365 times, God says that people don't be afraid. We're fearful creatures, aren't we? We're afraid. Then, they willingly, it's kind of an understatement, received him into the boat. Because you know what? If Jesus can walk on water, then he has the same power to keep you safe. So they say, Jesus, come on, get in the boat. We want you with us, Jesus. We need you with us. Jesus gets in the boat. Now look at this. Immediately, the boat was at the land where they're going. They're in the middle of the lake. Scared out of their minds. Say, Jesus, get in the boat. He gets in the boat and shoo, the boat immediately goes to him. Now, what's going on in this story? What is the significance of this? Well, let's back up a little bit. Mark shares the same story. He gives us some details. And what's interesting is to understand what is going on with the disciples. You see, Jesus, he's trying to get the disciples to understand who he is. Why? Well, because if you understand who Jesus is, and then you understand he loves you, and he's inviting you into a relationship with you, you find that's the very thing you're looking for. That nothing else in this world can fill. Amen. All right? So now look at this. Mark tells us, then he went up into the boat, and immediately the wind stops. They were completely astonished. Why? Because they did not understand about the loaves. But their hearts were hardened. Now, the loaves, that's the reference to the miracle he just took. A boy's 5 crackers and 2 sardines and fed 20,000 people with it. And so he jumps into the boat. The wind and the waves immediately, wham, stop. The lake is like glass. And they're astonished. Why? Because they didn't understand Jesus did this miracle. Now, what didn't they understand? They didn't understand who he was. So, what was the miracle? He provides for people's needs, right? And so there the disciples are with the miracle last week. And they're all excited because Jesus can make your life better. If you're hungry, he can feed you. He can provide your needs. See, Jesus is like the vending machine in the sky, right? You need something, we'll say a prayer and pull the lever, and Jesus will deliver the goods, right? Because Jesus is kind of like a grandfather figure up in heaven. You run to him when you're in a jam, you run to him when you need something. And he's kind of like a grandfather figure who spoils his grandkids. See, he just did this miracle. I mean, who is the person that can take some sardines and crackers, multiply them instantly, and feed all these people who are hungry? Anyone that can do that is God, right? But the disciples were so enamored with the nice shiny things that Jesus could do and all the good stuff, they didn't get who he was. You see, Jesus just taught this lesson by turning crackers into thousands And he hoped that they would say, you know what? Jesus can do anything, right? But there they are in the boat, and they've lost their faith. They're like, Jesus just sent us into the storm. What is he doing to us? I mean, come on, Jesus. We're trying to follow you. Shouldn't you make our life better if we're following you, right? I mean, I'm like, come on, Lord. I'm a pastor. I'm trying to follow you. My kids, they need each other. So can't you just have the judge, rule in what's good for my kids? I mean, come on, Jesus. The problem I had this week, the problem the disciples had, is if they really believed who Jesus was, if they just saw a miracle, a provision, they should have just been rowing the boat and saying, you know what? We know who Jesus is. We're doing what he told us to do. We're going to be fine. Hey, don't look at the wind and the waves. We're going to be just fine. Just trust. Believe in Jesus. We can trust him. We can trust him. He is going to take care of the well-being of our soul. We are okay because we're doing what Jesus told us to do. See, he jumps in the boat, the wind and the waves stop, and they're astonished because they didn't realize who he was. They didn't realize what he could do. Because their hearts were hardened. Because they had gotten in a place where they were looking for Jesus to do good stuff for them. Instead of recognizing being with Jesus is better than anything life has to offer. Well, what's the point? The feeding of the 20,000 presents Jesus as the one who can provide for people's needs. So just a few hours later, we would think the disciples would believe him, but they didn't. Walking on water and calming the storm presents Jesus as the one who can protect those who trust and obey. Jesus has the authority over nature, and if he can tame nature, he can tame people, and he can tame anything else. Both these miracles show Jesus' equity with the Father. The very thing the Father did in the Old Testament, Jesus can do the same stuff. Jesus is trying to say, hey, I'm God. I'm divinity. And if I'm God, I can do anything. And if I'm God, I'm here to love you and have a relationship with you. The disciples, up until this point, were enamored with how Jesus could make their life better and what he could do for them, than realizing he was God. And he was a God, I'm sorry, that should be capitalized, who invited them into the great joy of worship. So what he's trying to show us is this. God will often send us into storms on purpose. God will often send us into storms on purpose. Why? Just because he wants to rain on our parade, or he wants to make our life miserable, or what? No. God will often send us into storms to grow our faith, so we don't squander our lives on fruitless pursuits, but find him, the ultimate prize. Do you see what he's saying? God is going to create a storm, and he'll send you right into it for the purpose of growing your faith. Now, let me explain this, what's going on. Years ago, we wanted a family dog, and I thought, I should just go to, be environmentally friendly or whatever. I'm not sure what it's called, but let's go to the pound and get a dog, right? So we went to the pound and got this little dog, a black lab, and we named her Dakota. Now, they told us she was abused by the previous owner. And I thought, well, hey, we're just going to love this dog. I bought her a new collar with her name engraved on it, and we brought it home, we brought it a bed, nice matching bowls, the best dog food I could find. I'm like, this dog was abused. We're just going to love this dog, and this dog is going to be this wonderful family pet. It's just going to be our family pet. The only pet we have, other than some rambunctious chickens that Caroline had. So here we have Dakota. Well, the problem was, we get Dakota, and the first thing we needed to do was potty train this dog. Well, I had dogs growing up, and the way we potty train dogs is if they made a mess on the floor, we just take them over, put their nose in and say no. Like in an authoritarian voice, like no, or whatever. And the dog would learn, don't do that in the house. Well, I said no to this dog, and this dog freaked out. This dog freaked out and ran outside. And it's winter, and it's freezing rain. And I'm out there, a grown man, trying to find a black dog in the dark. Now that'll test your patience right there. And I'm calling the dog won't come. And I'm like I want the dog to come so it's inside the house, so it's warm. My idea for the dog is that this is going to be a dog that is inside, that on a cold winter night, she's sitting at my feet by the fire. But in order for the dog to sit at my feet by the fire, it's got to learn some manners. It's got to be civilized. It's got to learn you just can't poop on the floor. It's got to learn you can't bite children. It's got to learn you can't jump off the counter and eat food. It's got all these bad habits that need to be trained out of it in order for it to have closeness with the master. Right? What that dog needed was what? She needed to have faith that my heart was good towards her. Right? She needed to know, in order for her to have closeness and experience the wonderful benefits that being in my home would provide for her, she needed to trust me. Well, this dog, I'm not the dog whisperer, but I tried. I tried everything I could think of. But she had a habit of finding little girls and just running and hitting them from behind and knocking them flat. Caroline, we had a little birthday party for Caroline, and she had all these little girls over, and I got yelled at by a bunch of little girls' mothers after the party, and I realized we had to get rid of the dog, so the dog had to go back. It's a sad story, but the problem with Dakota was she never would trust my heart was good. So she never, ever got to experience the wonderful joy and blessing of being close and being an inside family dog. Folks, we're like dogs. We're like wild dogs. We want what we want when we want it, right? We'll jump up on the counter and get food. We often don't have manners. We bite other people that God cares about. We pretty much want to do what we want to do. Don't. And God's trying to civilize us. God's trying to say, hey, you got to trust me. And so God knows the only way that we learn to trust Him is if He just gives good things to us, buys us nice dog food, gets us a nice collar, and engraves our name on the thing, and does all these nice things. He knows we're just going to want the nice things. Right? And he knows just giving us nice things is going to turn us into what? Spoiled brats. And God says, no, listen, I want you as people, I want you to be close. When it's storming and it's snowing and it's -20, I want you curled up by the fire with me. But I can't bring you in my house with all these horrific behavior problems. So God sends us into the storm to grow our faith in Him, so that we recognize He is good, and that we recognize He can rescue us in whatever situation we're in. Why? So we don't squander our lives on fruitless pursuits. In other words, right now, do you know you were created for God, for His pleasure, and to enjoy Him? That's what the Bible tells us. God created us back in the garden before Adam and Eve sinned. They had a great relationship with God, and everything was the way it ought to be. The man and woman are naked, they're not ashamed. They have a great marriage, they have a great relationship with God, great relationship with the animals. Everything's the way it ought to be. But then sin comes into the world. Ruins everything. And at that point, every single person has a God-shaped void in their heart. And we go through life and we try to fill the void. We know we're empty. We know, wait a second, there must be more to life than this. And so what do? Well, I'm going to get a hobby. I'm going to become a fisherman. Well, I'm going to hunt. I'm going to, I don't know, build cars. I'm going to fly airplanes. Or I'm going to do any number of these things to somehow fill the ache in my soul. Fill it with sex or drugs or alcohol or whatever it is. Money, power, prestige. And none of them ever pan out. None of them deliver. Why? Because we all have a God-shaped hole in our heart that only He can fill. And God says, I'm going to send you into storms so that you get to know who I am. That I can do anything. And that if I am with you, you are going to be fine. Jesus is the ultimate prize. Now this past week, what's the judge's ruling going to be? And I'm kind of freaking out a little bit because I'm thinking to myself, if I lose this, I feel like I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to lose total faith that the world has common sense. I'm going to lose faith completely in the judge, just the justice system. And I'm going to lose faith that good and right wins. You know what I'm saying? I'm also, my heart is thinking, man, that this is going to destroy my kids. This is going to really hurt the kids. And Georgia has told me how many times she wants to go to school with her siblings. I mean, who wouldn't, right? And I'm like, how is this going to affect Georgia? How is this going to affect the older kids? The older kids see this as a purposeful attempt to separate them. So I'm thinking, am I going to be able to function if this goes south? And I had to come to the place to realize, wait a second, no matter what happens, the well-being of my soul is completely in God's hands. Like I could lose this, and I could still have joy. My soul is going to be okay. Why? Because Jesus says he's going to keep it okay. Matt, I love you. Wonderful brother. I don't know where I'd be without him. Tells me, Jeff, you got to just remember, Jesus loves your kids more than you do. So I've had to hang on to that. He's a plan. He loves my kids more than I do. Are my kids going to be okay? Maybe their hearts are broken that their mother would do this to them. But are they okay? I know they're here this morning. They sung last night.
Amen.
Like, nothing can destroy us. Like, God's love always runs deeper than tragedy, than evil, than abuse, injustice. His love always goes deeper. And Jesus was saying to me this week, look, Jeff, if I am who the Bible says I am, then I've got you. And I've got your kids. And you're going to be okay. I still don't know how. I'm in Kimmy on Wednesdays. I don't even know how I'm to pick my daughter up from school on Wednesdays. No solution to it. But somehow I just have to hang on. I'm going to be okay. Because of who Jesus is. And so it's been this time to sift away all these other things. And ultimately finding Jesus. And knowing, wait a second, here is the God of the universe who loves me. The God of the universe cares intimately about me. And I'm not going to grow up and be a spoiled brat. I'm going to actually have some depth. I'm going to actually have some character. I'm actually going to be able to go through a really hard time and maybe hurt well and manage it well. Because Jesus is with me. And I'm not going to freak out. See, we have to know, having Jesus is everything. Having Jesus is everything. We can get addicted to just wanting Jesus for the good stuff he does and miss him. I got an email from a close friend this week who heard about the decision and basically said, well, you must be doing something wrong in your life. They were trying to be helpful. Happened to be one of all her sisters. It's like, no. You know what, there are times when, like with Jonah, you're in direct disobedience, so God sends a storm to get your attention. There are other times God sends you in the storm because he's just trying to show you who he is. So the next time God sends you into a storm, you want to remember, wait a second. If I have Jesus, I'm going to be okay. If I have Jesus, I'm going to be okay. Jesus is the pearl of great price. Folks, like we have to understand, like when you have a God who created you for a relationship with you, like he wants to have a relationship with you. And if you've been a wild dog out, like a mongrel dog out running the streets, he's saying, listen, I want you to come in from the cold. I want you to be with me. You know, he loves us so much that if he had a wallet, your picture would be in that wallet. If he had a refrigerator, your picture would be on that refrigerator. And not only does he love us, he even likes us. He would want to spend time with us. He's eager to spend time with us. What? That's amazing. See, if he is who he says he is, the Bible says he is, then we should say, wait a second. If I can be with Jesus, that's worth everything, right? You've heard me use this analogy before. But a lot of us are like kids when it comes to God. Yeah, I'd say this to my kids at Christmas time. Hey kids, do you want the presents under the tree? You want to play with them and be with them? Or would you like to spend the day with Dad? Well, what are they going to do? Dad, give us the presents. And a lot of us are like kids with God the same way. God, just make my life better. I'll follow you if you make my life better. And he says, listen, I want to make your life better. I fed 20,000 people to make their life better. I healed the lame and I raised the dead. I did all kinds of things to make life better. But it's bigger than that. It's finding me and being with me. That is ultimately what your heart wants. That's what we're created for, people. That's the only thing that satisfies. And the only way we can respond is just worship. Say, you are the pearl of great price. You're worth it. You know. Now, when Caroline and the kids and Chris are going to come up, and they're going to do this final song, yeah, I just want you to think about it and listen to it. Go ahead, guys, come on up. And let it speak to you that this is what is everything in life, is to be with Jesus. Because that is the core of the human experience.
One.